Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for coming along. We're a little bit short-handed tonight, which we'll come to that in a moment. Having welcomed you, I now have to tell you that how you can get out. So there's an exit over here and one over here. If we have to leave the building urgently, we meet outside, or if that's not safe, then over on Dog Acre. If you've got a mobile phone, you turn it to silent, please, or turn it off. And if you need to make or receive a phone call, and of course you can do that outside rather than in the meeting room. The meeting tonight will be recorded, and it's also being live streamed on the YouTube channel. So I hope you've been to the hairdressers and had your makeup done. If you don't want to be seen, then you will need to move to a seat that's out of view of the camera, which is sitting here on the table. If you do speak, I would ask you to speak clearly, introduce yourself, and then speak clearly and say what you need to say. There will be an opportunity for public speaking. So the way that we'll run is we'll do the apologies for absence declarations, and then I will introduce the issue this evening, and that will then lead into an opportunity for public speaking. Just a reminder, this is a meeting in public and not a public meeting, so it's not a debate, although given the numbers of us here, we can be a little relaxed in some of the approach that we do. After that, we'll then move on to the motion, and then councillors will then debate and come to a conclusion. Okay, so let's begin the meeting then. Apologies for absence.
We've got apologies from Councillor Colin Brown, Councillors Linda Wright and Phil Fellows, District Councillor Emma Dawson, and Deputy Clerk Bill Anderson.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody around the table here have any declarations of interest in the matter? No. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on then to my introductory remarks, although they're a bit more than remarks. I'd just like to run through, for the benefit of everyone in the room, my understanding of where we are and how we've got here, and that will ensure that at least we've got a sound basis for discussion. Birchington is divided into two electoral wards, north and south, and that's the basis on which councillors are elected. In 2023, there was an error at Thanet District Council, whereby we were elected as a single parish rather than as two wards. That led to 10 councillors being elected, which is the complement for the council. But of course, those councillors weren't assigned to either the north or the south ward. They were simply seen as a collective. The error wasn't noticed, and after 21 days had elapsed, the situation becomes legitimate, and the council then moved on and has conducted its business in a legitimate way from there. That was then followed by a resignation. Councillor Wright resigned, and
Councillor Wright.
Sorry, Robert Wright resigned, and the vacancy was advertised in August, and that was advertised as parish wide rather than assigned to a particular ward. Again, the mistake was perpetuated by this, and it led eventually to the co-option of Councillor Moore, who is here this evening. 21 days elapsed. All of that then became legitimate, and the council business proceeded, and all the work that's been done since then still stands. There's not a problem. So we then move on to January this year, and the then chairman, Councillor Pook, approached Thanet Council to ask about the possibility of there being additional councillors on the parish council, and what and suggested a number that might be. This alerted Thanet Council to the situation that we had. It sought legal advice and received that advice in February 2025. It wasn't until June that that advice and the situation was then shared with the parish council. We spoke, the clerk and I spoke with the Chief Executive, Colin Carmichael, at Thanet Council. He explained the situation and that the position was irregular, and that it would be necessary for him to report that to the full council at Thanet to get their endorsement that the status quo could continue, even though it hadn't been the election hadn't been conducted correctly. That was followed by a briefing of the full council by Colin Carmichael later in June. All councillors were present and were able to ask questions and satisfy themselves about the situation. The TDC meeting in July, the 10th of July, then upheld the recommendation that we should continue with the status quo. But the legal advice did highlight that if there was a vacancy arising, then it would need to revisit that decision because a vacancy couldn't be filled in the normal way because we didn't know where the vacancy had arisen. In further correspondence between the parish and the district council, we've raised a number of points and tried to work through what the issues are. There's a question about if a vacancy does arise, and what about the cost and how is that dealt with? Because the error caused the error by TDC would cause a district-wide, a parish-wide election, and therefore it would be costly. It would be carried out across 2 wards, and if there was a single vacancy, it would only be on the basis of 1 ward. So after some toing and froing, the district council were able to reduce the cost of a full election to £4,400, which it's proposed be shared 50-50 with the parish council in the event that there's a full election. So we're looking at a £2,200 contribution from the parish council if there is a full election at that point. On the 8th of September, Councillor Marcel Pook handed in his resignation as a councillor, and that then triggered a number of other conversations then with the district council about what do we do next. Well, the situation that now arises is unique across the whole of the country. So there is no case law, there is no reference point to look at which would give us some guide as to how to deal with this. So we've made representations from the parish point of view, in which we've set out that since May, effectively we've operated with 9 members. Councillor Pook has been absent for personal reasons, and so we've operated with 9. We believe that we've continued to represent all of the people of Birchington. It's not that one east, north or south has been given any disadvantage as a result of being one down. And we believe that we continue to serve the people well. We've met legal requirements, we've met our obligations on a number of things, and in fact we've made good progress in a number of areas. So we believe that we've got capacity to continue to fulfill our duties, and that we have the ability to meet the necessary requirements placed on us. We feel that the cost of the election, which is not budgeted in this year, we would normally budget in a coming election year, we would budget for our contribution, but this wasn't anticipated. So there's an impact on cost. There's also an impact on our business processes as well, because at this point in the year, we're beginning to put together our budget proposals next year. We're looking at progress with the work programme and so on. So this is very much unexpected. And certainly my feeling, and councillors who I've spoken to individually, are of the view that the benefits of an election at this time do not outweigh the opportunities. Start again. That the benefits of retaining the status quo far outweigh the opportunity, business, and financial costs of the consequences of having an election. It's the disruption and the financial cost is not worth it. And the question is really what best serves the public interest. So that's where we are. We met with Colin Carmichael again last week, the Chief Executive, ran through these points. He is of the view that the district council has no choice but to call an election for the whole of the parish of Birchington. Although within the legislation, the Representation of the People's Act, there is some discretionary power. He feels that it will be stretching it to apply the discretion in this situation, and that his recommendation to the district council at its meeting on Thursday this week will be that there is an election in Birchington to be called as soon as practical. That then leads us into what happens after that. So the clerk and I have been discussing the considerations that we have to make. Off the back of that, we've made some representations back to Thanet Council to demonstrate the business processes that are ahead of us and the looming spectre of Christmas, coming across the election as well. So the timing of the election, again, will be determined by Thanet Council, but we're suggesting that it should be deferred somewhat in order to allow us to at least get past Christmas and to set the precept, to set the council tax levy for next year, and to have a settled business plan. So that's as far as the story, as far as I understand it. I don't know, is there anything else to add, Jane?
No, I don't think so. I think one of the things that in the conversations that we've had with Colin Carmichael, he's been very open as far as if we can find any form of grey area in the legislation, that he'd be open to listening to that. And to that end, we have sought our own advice through CALC and NALC, which are the national and Kent local council bodies. We're still waiting to hear back from that. So that's sort of something that is, I'm pretty sure we probably won't hear anything now before Thursday. However, he has been open to if we can find a grey area. But also he has also been open to listening to the fact that business continuity is quite important to us. And obviously, as the clerk to the council, I have a responsibility to make sure that certain things are done within a programme, and so that's one of the reasons why we've gone to speak about that side of it. If an election is inevitable, then the timing of it could actually be a bit more helpful in terms of us managing to keep business going, if you see what I mean. So the business of the parish council, whoever might be round the table after the election. So that's just the point that I'd raise on this.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that's the background. At this stage, I'll invite public participation. Does anybody wish to speak? Okay, Rod, please, you have 3 minutes on your chosen subject.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. My name is Rodney Giddings. I'm a resident and elector of Birchington. I've got 3 points to make about cost, timing and review, and I won't repeat what your Chairman has said, but I have looked at the legal position. I read the report to Thanet Council for Thursday night, and I think there's hardly any chance that there's any legal loophole. However, some of the points you've made are absolutely valid, and I will cover those. The procedural error, as you said, was not identified or challenged, and the fault lies entirely with Thanet Council. And I feel strongly that they should bear the full cost of any new election, assuming, of course, that there are sufficient people standing for the election. Otherwise, there won't be one. It'll just be without an election. I think if they decide to proceed with elections, it will be detrimental to the interest of the community, because one, as you said, the parish council is now effectively managed after poor leadership last year, and you're about to plan your budgets for 26/7. Secondly, you've developed a high level of expertise over the last couple of years, particularly on issues relating to highways and planning. This is essential when you think that we're going to have detailed plans in for 1,600 houses in the new year, probably. And also, you've done a lot of work, regeneration of the recreation ground, etc. Local government reorganisation is going to be thrust upon the parish and its impact needs to be known, and you've got experience at the local level. Now, none of that seems to matter to Thanet Council, and they'll probably go ahead and, publish a notice. But I agree with you, Chair, that if they proceed slowly to give you a chance to complete your budget and precept and business processes, I mean, after all, they act slowly on everything else. Why wouldn't they act slowly on this? They don't have to go fast, although there are some legal requirements. I'd also say, Chair, that a 2-ward parish doesn't make any sense. When a councillor can live within 3 miles of both wards and represent either, then you could have someone standing for the North Ward but actually lives in the South and vice versa. So as a resident, to me, you're one parish council, and I actually expect parish councils to work for the whole community, not just a particular ward, and particularly when dealing with major issues like planning and local review. But there is a way forward. Thanet Council could, no, they won't do this now, but they could initiate a community governance review to replace the 2 wards with 1. This can also be initiated by a petition from residents. Now, ultimately, therefore, a community governance order would be made, and that would therefore delete the 2 wards and bring them back into 1 parish. So there is an opportunity under the law to have a community governance review. And I suggest, Chair, that would be a very good target to aim for the 2027 elections. And residents or yourselves could do that, could request that if Thanet won't do it. And of course, they may take their time if requested. I was looking forward to hearing the views of you 2 district councillors who are also parish councillors, because obviously they would have an input here tonight, but they also will be voting on Thursday evening. So it is unfortunate that we don't know what our district council's view of this position is. So that, Chair, is all I have to say. I do support your representations, in principle, your motion, but I fear that Thanet will have to do what they have to do. But thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? Okay, then we'll move on to the motion itself. The way I intend to do this is that I will propose the motion, look for a seconder, and then I will go round the table and invite each councillor to speak. We will then, each having heard from the other, there will then be an opportunity for councillors to speak again. We'll do this in accordance with the standing orders, so you get one more chance after you've done your initial contribution. There'll be one more opportunity to speak again. We'll then revisit the motion and have a vote on where we stand with this. So I've outlined the background, and I think I've outlined my own position here. I do not think that an election is in the public interest at this time, and that the district council should consider whether that is more important than meeting an administrative requirement that where it does have some opportunity to apply some discretion. But probably that's enough said from me. So I think if we move around, so the motion is that Birchington Parish Council believes that the Thanet District Council proposal for a full parish council election under the current circumstances for the purposes of filling 1 councillor vacancy is disproportionate, unnecessary, and not in the public interest. The grounds are that the parish council has continued to operate effectively with 9 members since May 2025. The business, financial, and opportunity costs of a full election would far outweigh any perceived benefits. The people of Birchington will be no better off and most likely worse off than they are now. Birchington Parish Council calls upon Thanet District Council to consider allowing the parish council to continue in its current form until the next round of parish elections. They are currently scheduled for May 2027. We'll go to my left. Councillor Houghton. Say
Do the motion
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So I propose that motion. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Help.
Good evening. First of all, I fully support the comments by both the chairman and by Mr. Giddings, and I'm particularly disappointed that not one of our 5 district councillors are here this evening. I understand that they will be going through this on Thursday, and they may have their own views at that time, but it would have been useful for them to be here and listen to our views. And it's a shame they're not here. But whilst we appreciate the decision rests with Thanet District Council, I believe that the legal requirements behind clearly what happens next affects all of us as councillors and our residents. We are, remember, unpaid volunteers who in good faith put our names forward to represent Birchington-on-Sea as parish councillors, and we were elected for a period of 4 years, from 2023 to 2027. And in many respects, we have organised our lives around that period of time to make sure that we are available for meetings, events, whatever they happen to be. So in my view, it is only correct that we should have some input into the TDC decision-making process. After a difficult year in 24-25, we have a new chairman who has introduced some much-needed intellectual rigour into the running of the council. Our terms of reference, standing orders are clear and adhered to. Our working groups and committees are properly staffed. Tasks are clearly defined. Discussion is on point and decisions taken in a timely manner. And we've been doing that for several months with 9 councillors. The working atmosphere in the parish office is hugely improved, and our clerks can now concentrate more fully on their support to residents without nugatory distractions. So, other than interpreting the legal requirements without challenge, how does TDC believe that an election now, costing several £1,000s, and let's not get too confused over this costing about how we're paying half and they're paying half. We are taxpayers. It's all coming out of our taxes. So in fact, we're paying the whole thing. It's just coming out of a different pot. And this is going to be repeated in 18 months' time if this election goes ahead. So how is this going to benefit our residents? What is it that we're doing now that TDC believe requires change, other than being very righteous and trying to overcome an error of their own making, that they feel warrants this election? It's my view that the people of Birchington have continued to enjoy universal representation, as we've heard, and BPC, Parish Council, continues to fill its statutory duties. In this context, an election could not be deemed demonstrably necessary. On the contrary, an election is clearly unnecessary and would be most disruptive. And our parish clerk has explained some of the ramifications of the pre and immediate post-election periods, and they are all potentially negative. There are no pluses to this, of holding a fresh election. And now I appreciate, as we all do, that things are as they are. But as a resident, as well as being a councillor, I'm a resident here as well. I want my parish councillors to work parish-wide, as Mr. Giddens has said, which is actually what is happening now. And in these times of ever-shrinking budgets and increased living costs, I don't believe that spending thousands of pounds on an election now and again in 18 months' time is either warranted or can be sensibly justified. And as I mentioned earlier at the beginning, I'm just very disappointed that our TDC councillors are not here to take this message forward and search for an interpretation of the legal advice that does not lead to an expensive and totally unnecessary election. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hudson.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. It is a ridiculous situation we find ourselves in, and it's clearly TDC, who run the local elections, made a mistake on the last elections. Instead of pressing it to be the ward, 2 wards. I mean, everybody who stood for the whole of Birchington. The electorate who made the decision at the ballot box was from the whole of the Birchington, and every person who was able to vote had the opportunity to vote for all of the 10 out of the number of people that were on the ballot paper across the whole of the village. We work as a village parish council. We work across the whole of the village. We don't segregate in any way to one group of people or another group of people. And I think that's to the credit of the parish council and has been for a number of years. I fully support, Chairman, the remarks that you've made and that your Vice Chairman has made. You're absolutely right. It's difficult to find any holes from the parish point of view in this whole principle. We have worked together well for since your position as chair, and there's no doubt that there are good plans going forward that it would be good for this council, the current council, to be able to bring them to fruition. And Chairman, I support your motion absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman. I fully support all that's already been said. Hopefully, from my notes, I won't go over any of them again. I've looked at the adverse effects of having an election and some positive aspects. I did carry out over the last week seeking feedback from the residents that actually put us here, and hopefully the comments are taken up by TDC. Anyway, the adverse effects that I've identified is obviously there's the budgeting ones that have already been spoken about, but it could be that we set a budget for 10 new councillors who may have completely different views to ourselves. The continuity of parish council business is just as important. I think that's already been spoken about already, but there are individual councillor activities that are particularly important. And I would suggest that we have one councillor who probably carries out and has carried out particular activities regarding SP16. And if you've got a football team that you support, the worst thing you can do is lose your best player for a particular aspect of the game. So I believe that is that's a possibility. We could lose some of our better or best active councillors. Then there's an effect on relationships with other organisations, their projects, their finances, and their planning. It can have a really adverse, or it could have a better effect on team dynamics. I think we've got a good team as it is, but obviously, if new councillors are introduced, they've got to be prepared and trained or whatever it is for them to be effective. There'll be a requirement for an annual meeting, selection of a new chairman, deputy chairman, and committees. Standing orders would have to be discussed, agreed, etc., along with other policies. As already mentioned, the next scheduled election is in about 18 months' time. There's effects on projects that are started some time ago, might span financial years. If we stick to the scheduled election time, we can take that into account with the projects and the financial aspects of it. Then I looked at the positive aspects, and there are positive aspects on it, in as much as a democratic electoral position would be corrected. We would give an opportunity for the unsuccessful 2023 and 2023 candidate to stand and be selected in a correctly performed electoral process. I did refer to resident feedback, and I had the initial intention of trying to obtain feedback from 100 residents based upon the motion that was put forward. I did explain what the motion was I didn't put my own views across unless I was asked for it. The residents had the opportunity not to actually take part. Any time in asking for the feedback, I said, you don't actually have to do this at all if you don't want to. And some of them decided not to. But the overall results of the 50 that I did get responses for, there are 41 residents that agreed with the motion, 3 disagreed, and 6 were of a neutral position. Again, as I say, I didn't put my personal views forward unless they asked for them. If they wanted to know a bit more, and it was surprising just how many people wanted a variable amount of information, but that's what we came up with. And I think it's quite clear, I suggest, what the residents think. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Prebble.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Jim, for that information. I am, and most of us are already, elected councillors. It's purely a technicality to call another election. We've no difficulty continuing to manage with 9 councillors. To spend 4,400 from council tax is simply wasteful, and it is on the residents. Whether you split it or not, it's all coming out of their pockets. As a resident, I oppose the election proposed by TDC. I don't need to say any more. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tiley.
Thank you, Chair. I have not much to say because everybody on the opposite side of the table to me has said all the comments that I agree with. We have a very good team at the moment that's been nurtured over the last 2.5 years, and it's getting better and better, and people are getting more and more involved. And I think there's a camaraderie in the parish council at the moment that there hasn't been for a long time. I'm a new member of the council. I'm enjoying being on the council, and I see this as a potential flaw that was forced on us by TDC that we had no control over, and I fully support my chair.
Thank you. I'll take the slightly unusual step of saying, is there anything you would like to add as the clerk?
Well, I mean, it's almost quite sad to listen to the comments, because I'm listening to the feedback, and yeah, I will agree that we've got a good team. We get things done, and we have our ups and downs, and we have had our ups and downs, but at the end of the day, this is a mid-term situation, and it's disappointing that the error has been made, and I think that what we need to try and get at the end of this is the best outcome for Birchington and Birchington's residents. And I think from the parish clerk point of view, my wages are paid by the residents of Birchington. I may have 10 completely new people at the end of an election process, or we might have exactly the same plus 1 extra. But we are heading towards local government review, reorganisation. We are heading towards budget setting time, and I think one thing that I would say is that my feelings are that the point at which the election happens at Thanet District Council, that's their job done. That's when the hard work starts to actually either rebuild or carry on. It's like it's a ticking. Once that election's happened, that's Thanet District Council finished with it. So I know it's unusual for me to speak out like this, but I think that it's quite important that we look forward, that we need to carry on doing the business of the parish.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Just to add my final remarks, I think it is disappointing for all of us that we sort of mid-term face this disruption. We've all got in our mind's eye the plan which would take us through for the remaining 18 months, and so that's naturally come out in the comments. We also have to accept that business goes, the show goes on, the business has to continue, and we have to make the best of what we've got. So if the outcome of Thursday is that TDC decides that it wants to do what's being put in front of it, then we have to try and make the best of the situation, as the clerk has said. And I'm sure that all of those involved will do their best until it comes to polling day and beyond, if re-elected. So there is something to look forward to, but it's not quite what we were hoping it would be for the next 18 months. I now throw the floor open to councillors to add any further comments if they wish, having heard what others have said. Nope.
No.
Okay, thank you. And I'll give a final opportunity. Is there anybody in the public gallery who's got any final comment?
Jacqueline Buxey, I'm a resident. Do I understand then, if there is an election, that all of your sort of jobs it'll be a total new council? Is that not, you can't have an election just to get one more member?
That's correct. Yes. So it will be a full council election. So there will be 10 councillors to be, or 10 council positions will be up for election. So we will all stand aside and may be re-elected or may not, depending on circumstances.
No, I don't fully understand all the politics of it. We'll come along because interested in this, but I heard you say you'd co-opted a member to the council. Why can that not be done now?
Because the election in 2023, instead of having 6 councillors in the south, so this side of the railway line, and 4 councillors representing the north on the other side, you would have north and south councillors. So if there was a vacancy arose, you would know that vacancy was for the north or the south. But because it was just a collective 10, we don't know where the vacancy has arisen. And the electoral process is based on this ward or that ward, so you can't determine. And so the only way out at the moment for that Thanet Council can see is a nuclear option of do the whole thing again.
Okay, thank you very much.
Every member can put their hat in the room again, can't you?
Yes. So everybody around the table has the opportunity to stand for re-election if they wish. As Councillor Houghton has said, individuals will have their own plans and their own intentions as to what they would be doing at the end of the 4-year term, and they may choose to bring that forward, or they may choose to follow on. So it may be that we pick up with the continuity. It's just that we lose momentum for a period which will set us back, but it won't completely stop our mission. Okay, Mr. Giddings.
Just another question. My understanding is that if a notice of a vacancy, well, in this case, election, is posted by Thanet, am I right in thinking that the date of the election has to be within 60 days of that notice being posted? Because that's quite critical to know whether it's from the date of the posting of the notice or 14 days after that, before you then actually hold the election. Because my understanding is if it's 60 days, that takes us into January, probably. So
35 working days, I
finding
think.
out exactly when an election could take place.
Yes, there is a set sequence of actions that have to occur and events that have to happen. TDC has asked us to lay out our business process, the things that we have to deal with, that we have scheduled through into the new year. And it's TDC's intention then to lay the election timetable next to that to try and identify a suitable point at which the election can be called. So effectively, what they will do is identify the end point, the date of the election, and then work backwards to determine when things should happen. And it's based on this thing that the election has to happen as soon as it's practicable, but practicable is not defined. And the period from calling the election to it happening, I'm just informed, is 35 days.
35 days.
And those are 7 weeks, effectively. So it's 5. These are working days. It excludes Saturday, Sunday, and bank holidays. Okay, so let's then move. So we go back to the motion. The motion is that Birchington Parish Council believes that the Thanet District Council proposal for a full parish council election under current circumstances for the purposes of filling one councillor vacancy is disproportionate, unnecessary, and not in the public interest. The grounds are that the parish council has continued to operate effectively with 9 members since May 2025. The business, financial, and opportunity costs of a full election would far outweigh any perceived benefits. The people of Birchington will be no better off and most likely worse off than they are now. Birchington Parish Council calls upon Thanet District Council to consider allowing the parish council to continue in its current form until the next round of parish elections. That's the motion. All those in favour, please show. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to the next item, which is the date of the next meeting. The date of the next full parish council meeting will be Tuesday, the 25th of November, here in the library, and that will begin at 6:30 p.m. Thank you for your attendance. Meeting is closed.
Chairman, will you go and speak? Will you go and speak at the council meeting?
Granddaughter's birthday, the next full council meeting